Welcome back to Mondays Down South, presented by Seams Media. Here, coming at you after Week 1 of the NFL. Back with the try box, if you will. No Sai this week. I trust he's having an amazing trip back in India. So we got returning guests and I think 7-time home league fantasy football champion, but we lose track at this point. Zach Kleine, who is flanked by 0-time home league champion Zach Mikulik, but who pulled off a Week 1 Texas-sized Dallas defense and special teams-sized drubbing of the defending champ in Week 1. So I'll give Klein the first word as the guest, and then Zach can join in and maybe do some smack talking. But Klein, how we doing?
Good, man. It's great to be back. Great to be back on the show. It's always good to chop it up with you guys and just kind of talk about what stuff that's going on, stuff that you guys are thinking. It's good to hear you guys' opinions on stuff. Really happy football's back. Really excited to keep grinding, keep watching football, keep diving into fantasy stuff from there. So yeah, Bakulik, I gotta let you roll this one. You rolled my team over this week, so if anything you want to say, it's fair game. Take your shot. It's probably the first time you've ever beaten
I
me.
can, man. I wish I could, Klein. And this is my one opportunity to actually talk as much smack as I possibly can, because if there's, any innuendo of how the last 15 seasons of our fantasy football league have gone, Zach Klein has beaten me, steamrolled me every single time so badly that, Klein, I had to actually negotiate with you the one time I got to the championship just to say, hey, man, let's just go 50-50 on this, no matter who wins or loses. I think I was even projected the more points in that fantasy football championship. I can't remember, but Zach, of course, responded back and said, no deal. We're gonna go. The loser gets the pansy $10 back, and the winner gets over $400. And obviously he clubbed me there. So it's always nice getting a Week 1 victory, but I can't talk smack, Klein, because I didn't really select my team. And also, who would have predicted that Dallas's defense was going to go off for 40 points? I mean, my goodness. So I guess I should really be thanking Daniel Jones and company as opposed to ridiculing you to the high heavens. I will like to give a little point out, but Garrett Jacobek's team is awful. I mean, it's downright atrocious, and at this point, I'm concerned for his team's well-being, and I think Evan, as the commissioner, we might need to look at replacing him as a possible member with 50 points. I can't wait to do the cleanup this week 2, and really put him out of his misery. So I just wanted to bring that up, and obviously, I'm sure he'll see this.
I love it. A relegation format, perhaps, with Garrett being on the hook for the first year. But I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll send him the clip, and see how it goes. But yeah, Dallas defense. What are they? Second highest scorer of the week behind Tyreek Hill and maybe Tua, so maybe third. But I mean, hey, what can you do? Tip your cap. But I guess we'll jump into it. Before we do that, for those that are watching on YouTube, please do us a favor, like the video and subscribe. And for those on Spotify, hit us with a follow. We got a new link this year, so if you have followed in the past, just make sure you're still following us, because it might have dropped last year. But yeah, so I guess we'll start off with some of the key headlines. I guess not much coming out of Week 1. The biggest one, obviously, Aaron Rodgers confirmed torn Achilles. Like 4 plays into his Jets debut, after a super hype running out with the American flag on 9/11 moment there for the Jets, and then just like pure misery in true Jets fashion. So I guess I'll start, Klein. Like, what's your reaction to the injury, and I guess how it impacts the Jets' outlook this year?
Well, my initial reaction, I kind of flipped it since then, is that this probably was the last time we were going to see Aaron Rodgers playing in the NFL. That was my first thought. I think I've probably swipped around on that. You're looking at a guy who's never been mobile. He's always pretty much been a pocket passer. An Achilles injury or an Achilles tear is going to be really bad for anybody who's explosive, like J.K. Dobbins or Cam Akers, anyone like that. Probably less so for a quarterback. So I'm wondering now, he did sign he's on a 3-year contract, so he's going to have another 2 years after this year. I'm wondering, with a full year of recovery, is he going to be back, and is he going to be ready to go for Week 1 next year? So I thought this was going to be the end in the beginning, but maybe not so much now.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Klein. Where my head immediately goes is, are they going to go in-house or out-of-house at quarterback? Obviously, Zach Wilson, we all watch Hard Knocks, played really well. He played probably really well because he didn't have the pressure on him anymore like he did the year prior. And so I'm curious to see what he's going to do with this team. But all the pieces are there. I mean, Robert Saleh knows this. It's why he was super energetic this entire offseason, you can just feel the excitement in the locker room, bringing in Dalvin Cook, bringing in these superstars, kind of as this final push, right? The defense is there, the offensive line, for the most part, is there. They've got a lot of studs. So with all the pieces put together, now obviously their quarterback goes down. Do you go out of house, bring a guy like, Jacoby Brissett in or something like that? Even like a game manager who's not going to necessarily make the mistakes that Zach Wilson, doesn't have as much upside as Zach Wilson, but is clearly not going to turn the ball over as much as he is going to. And so it opens the idea for, hey, do we bring in a veteran quarterback, like a Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan type of player to kind of fill those shoes? So I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Personally, I think they should rock with Zach Wilson. He's just got too much tremendous upside. I think it's worth taking the risk, even though everybody else is there and the talent's obviously there. But Ev, I'll kind of open it up to you. What do you think they should do, in-house or out-of-house?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Zach Wilson. I'm here for the Zach Wilson resurgence. Unfortunately, he didn't get the full year to learn from Aaron Rodgers, or the full 2 years. But I don't know, even in the short time, and Aaron will still be in the locker room and helping him out on the sideline, I'm sure. So I'm here for the resurgence. Obviously, they need to bring someone in, for the backup role. And yeah, if it doesn't go well with Zach, you always have that guy there that can step in and do more of the game managing. But I'm here for Zach Wilson. I liked the one thing I heard was that Garrett Wilson touchdown, that little fade. That was actually a run play that Zach Wilson just said. He looked out to the side and said, "Nah, I'm gonna throw the fade to Garrett," and it wasn't a very good throw, but just an unbelievable catch by Garrett. So hoping we see more of that. But I like that kind of moxie there, coming in off the bench. So we'll see. You think they can still make the playoffs here with whoever's at quarterback?
I'm gonna tell you my lean is no, just because of everything that's gonna have to go right. Otherwise, we're talking about Zach Wilson here. We have 2 years of experience of what this guy is like as a quarterback. But I mean, otherwise, at pretty much every position other than quarterback, this team is ready to rock. I mean, this team was ready to make a playoff push. They had Super Bowl aspirations. They wanted this so badly. I think Robert Saleh is a really good coach. They had probably one of the best defenses in the league. I think you can still get pretty far with all of those other pieces, right? Breece Hall looking good coming back off of his ACL tear. This team was ready to rock. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're still in the hunt, trying to make it for closer to the playoffs. But I think a lot of those dreams have been dashed.
I agree. I think the dreams are dashed too, but I'll take it a different angle. I think their division is the best division in football right now. I mean, the way Miami came out and played in SoFi Stadium against the Chargers, who I also think are going to be elite with a completely healthy Justin Herbert. They're not going to be any team to play with this year, especially on the offensive end. There's no way the Jets can keep up with them offensively. And, obviously with the Patriots, Patriots are probably the worst team in that division. I think we can kind of all agree on that. But they even kept it close with Philly. And, I mean, Philly is, I think, going to be a lethal perennial player this year. So when you take into consideration all the AFC East teams, I think the Bills are going to come for vengeance when it's in Buffalo. So based on all of those factors and considerations, there's just no way the Jets are going to make the playoffs this season. I mean, let's be frank.
Yeah, I don't think I had them in the playoffs before, to be honest, even with Aaron, which I'm pretty sure was a mistake after seeing that Week 1 game and that they won it even without him. But I think it's going to be tough. I think they'll be in the mix, though. I think they'll be in the mix, like you guys said. That rest of the whole team is just so loaded. You don't need a ton on offense when your defense is that good. So we'll see. But switching gears, I guess, I don't know if there's too many other major headlines. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, another Achilles, goes down for the year. I've never been a J.K. Dobbins fan, but early indications were that he was going to be a huge factor in that offense this year. So I don't know. Does that kind of move the needle for Baltimore at all for you guys?
Probably not a ton, if at all. I was actually very excited for J.K. Dobbins this year. I had a really high best ball exposure in him. I thought he was going to be the clear 1A back in this offense with probably a pretty good chance of having a pass down role. And then I think contrary to Evan's belief from prior shows, I am very high on the Baltimore offense, and I still am, despite Week 1 not probably being the heights that everyone would have hoped for. So I thought this was going to be a really fast-paced offense, and I was really optimistic J.K. Dobbins would be there. But, not likely going to happen. And I think the other guys that they're going to bring in, they're going to be just fine because they're going to run in the scheme and they will be serviceable.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Klein as well on the J.K. Dobbins front. It's just, it's tough to see a guy like that go down. That's probably all I got to say about it, Ev.
Yeah, I don't think it changes much for me. And as Klein pointed out, I do appreciate all the comments on the short last week. But haters, I am seeing the comments, and I don't know. I'm gonna chalk week 1 as a win for me on that take because Lamar did not look too good in that game. So mine is less a major potential overreaction and more, I'm gonna say, a correction on my predictions picks for this division in our season preview. So my reaction is that the Atlanta Falcons are gonna win that division. We got a Falcons fan on the line. Yeah, I picked this.
Tell me why. Why do you think they are?
So I don't think that division's particularly good. None of the teams overly impressed me. I picked the Saints kind of by default in our season preview. But I just think that the Falcons are a nice young team. I mean, the run game I think is going to be just incredibly hard to stop. The problem is I hate Desmond Ridder. I think he's terrible. But I think like Heineke could lead them to the playoffs. I think once they hopefully get London and Pitts more involved, I think the defense is going to be solid. Offensive line's okay. I don't know. I mean, it's more about the weakness in the rest of the division, but I just love the Algier-Bijan combo to surpass the Saints. And I guess the Bucs looked a little better, but I'm going with the Falcons there in that division. That's my overreaction to week 1.
Let me ask you guys a quick question on that. Is Drake London just not good, or is Arthur Smith just so incredibly intelligent that we're using him as a decoy? Because the run game is completely set up. When you have Algier and you have Bijan Robinson averaging 6 yards a carry, I mean, and they both got quite a bit of touches in that game. Is it just the offensive line going against a pretty respectable defense? Is it just our players are so talented in the backfield? Or is it the fact that Jeremy Chin and guys in Carolina's secondary can't creep up, stick 9 in the box, and be able to stuff the run immediately? It's like they're forced to respect the Drake London, who was a first-round pick. They're forced to respect Kyle Pitts, first-round pick. But these guys are not really putting up numbers, and they've actually become fantasy football liabilities, honestly, at this point, especially Pitts. So I guess my question to you is Drake London just really not that good, or is he just really that good, really that respected, and they're using him in a way to kind of set up the run game?
I think Drake London is, and really even Kyle Pitts, because we've seen them in spurts be really good. Down the back stretch of last year, Drake London was excellent when he was the only guy in the passing game. And Kyle Pitts was really good his rookie year, putting with 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards as a rookie. I just think that this is exactly how Arthur Smith wants to play football. He wants to run the ball until you cannot run the ball anymore because you've fallen in the end zone. I mean, everything from the offensive line as a run blocking unit, they are designed to get up the field and make blocks and, create holes for these guys who are going to be in the backfield. And the other point I have on that is that, I just don't think there's any trust in Desmond Ridder. You can't, can't have a guy drop back 18 times and say, yeah, we trust you to get anything done on the field here. Everyone can tell, Arthur Smith does not trust this guy. He's not the long-term answer at quarterback. And it's what makes it even weirder is that they spent such high draft capital to get Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So it's a really confusing situation, but it's something that, everyone's just going to have to deal with because this is what Arthur Smith wants. And when you're playing a team like Carolina, who's a young team, and they're not going to be able to put up as much of a fight, and you can kind of impose your will on them, that's exactly how you can see a game going.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think in today's NFL, I do think you maybe need a little bit more speed than Drake London has to be kind of a high reception, elite level receiver would be my only critique. Or you need to be a super elite route runner. But overall, I think it's more just scheme. And Kyle Pitts, he does a lot else for the offense. I mean, like you mentioned, kind of being a decoy in some sense. But my understanding is he's done a pretty good job from a blocking standpoint. It doesn't turn up in fantasy usage, but, he does a lot of other things well. But yeah, you guys going overreaction or appropriate reaction on that?
I'd call it an appropriate reaction. I mean, this division is pretty much a toss-up.
Yeah.
I would say an overreaction still. I love the pick, Evan, and I want them to win the division, but for some reason, I still think Carolina is going to come out on top. I just think once Bryce
Oh.
Young figures it out, he was the first overall draft pick for a reason. Let me ask you guys this: who was the best division in that, or who has the best defense in that division?
Oh.
Panthers.
I don't think so.
Who's the
Uh,
best offensive line in that division? The
it's
Atlanta.
not the
Panthers.
Panthers. It's not the
Atlanta.
Panthers.
It's
It's not
definitely
the
Atlanta.
Panthers. Yeah,
You think
it's not the
Atlanta
Panthers.
does?
It's not the
Even
Panthers.
yeah, even New Orleans has a way better offensive line than Carolina.
I mean, they just drafted that kid from NC State as left tackle. They've got Moton at right tackle. I don't know. I just think once Bryce Young is able to figure it out, I just think Carolina, for some reason, could make a push. But, I mean, I love the pick, Evan. I love the pick, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not a big Bryce Young fan. That's not an overreaction to week one. That's just been my stance the entire time. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I
Yeah,
think that's a
so
good
I
take
figured
still.
if I'm going to be sitting in the seat and replace Asai, I have to pay a little bit of an homage to him. And my overreaction is that Anthony Richardson is going to lead the Colts to the playoffs and win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I
Oh,
really feel this way. If you guys watched the game or at least saw it on Red Zone, I thought it was a really promising start. Like, he did not look overmatched. It's very clear that, he is the focal point of the offense. He's going to get every little carry, every touch, every RPO, every downfield pass that he can handle. And I mean, he looked very comfortable. I thought. I thought it was a really good performance with them, despite the fact that they have like no weapons outside of Michael Pittman. Still no Jonathan Taylor for a couple of weeks, so I think he's going to come back. And probably a worsened O line than what Indianapolis had in the past. But I think at the end of the day, we're talking about like the most athletic quarterback come through the combine. We're talking about a guy who has that dual threat capability, and he has Shane Steichen. That's a guy who you can trust that every week he's going to have a game plan that puts him in the best position to succeed. And if you dive into like some more of the advanced stuff, they played at a really fast pace. So that means you get to the line. Anthony Richardson does not have to try and process the defense as a whole, try and understand where everyone's alignment are. Like, they can just focus on executing the play, gaining positive yards, and pushing it down the field. So I think this is a really good spot for him. If you take it just the way like you can see from the first week already, like he's probably already a lot further along than the other two rookie quarterbacks, and that would really only leave Bijan for the rookie of the year part. If you have Anthony Richardson, who's getting the same amount of carries as Bijan in a given week, that is going to probably push him forward. And especially if that other part of my take follows through, where they make it to the playoffs, I think he's a lock for rookie of the year.
That's really interesting. It kind of goes back to my point of why the Chargers could have some trouble sneaking into the playoffs is when you have a team like the Indianapolis Colts who play in a much easier division. We're talking they could possibly steal 2 from Houston, maybe even steal 2 from Tennessee. They played themselves a great game. I mean, I almost wanted to put an asterisk next to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I just think they're really that good. I think they played a great team in the Indianapolis Colts, and Anthony Richardson looked incredible. I mean, that team looks great. They have limited options, and so I guess the longer that Jonathan Taylor's out, if they can win a couple of games, I think he's definitely the clear front runner. So I would agree with that. Ev, what about you?
didn't you like bury the Colts last week, Zach? And now you're just gonna flip after one game? Come on, man.
I
What are we
have
doing
to
here?
because I hadn't really seen Anthony Richardson play, and he did make mistakes and he missed some throws. But I think what Zach's alluding to is just like the way he played. Like, he commanded the offense. I mean, you're right. He looked like he had been in the NFL for much longer than both Stroud and Bryce Young. And I know he's going to continue to make mistakes, but he just seemed like a little bit more confident. He wasn't afraid to make certain throws, and it seemed like they kind of opened the offense out for him a little bit. And from a dual threat capability, I mean, he's unstoppable. He's by far the best out of the new quarterback class. So I will switch my take around, Ev, but it just took me one game to actually watch him for me to see the potential there, whereas previously I didn't really have that opportunity.
All right, all right. So I'm gonna say my take. I actually had an Anthony Richardson take as well. So I have to go half and half on Klein though, because I think it's a big overreaction on the team as a whole. I don't think they sniff the playoffs by any means. I mean, I think the Jaguars are going to run away with that division by like week 8 or 9. Like, I think they're just going to cruise. I think the wild card is too taxed. So I think it's a big overreaction on the team making the playoffs. I could definitely see Offensive Rookie of the Year. That would not surprise me at all. And then my kind of overreaction was on Anthony Richardson. This one is like way out there, probably. But I think he could potentially win an MVP at some point during his career. For similar reasons Kleine mentioned, he has that Cam Newton vibe. I love leaning into guys that seem to be really well respected in the locker room and well liked by their teammates. And he seems like an awesome, hardworking dude. Shane Steichen, like Kleine mentioned. Obviously, it's a bold take to say someone's going to win an MVP because there's only one to go around. And they usually go to the same guys. But I think it's a tremendous start, just to reiterate what you guys have mentioned. So that was my overreaction, but I do have to fade the Colts as a team this year.
All right, well, mine is that the Buffalo Bills are going to miss the playoffs and Sean McDermott will be fired into the season.
Oh, ooh, that is spicy.
So, I believe I heard Michael Wilbon, great PTI sportscaster, once say about Josh Allen. He's got that Charlie Brown in him. And 4 turnovers and 5 sacks against, or opposite a Zach Wilson-led team, kind of like we were talking about in the beginning a lot. It's pretty unbelievable. I mean, this guy, he loves turning the ball over. He loves screwing up in a big moment, right? And it doesn't seem like Ken Dorsey, who's the OC last year, now going into his second year, it doesn't seem like they can figure out any sort of offensive scheme that doesn't involve force-feeding Stephon Diggs low-quality downfield targets, which, is okay against crap teams. But when you're playing against defenses like the Jets, it's a lot less viable. No one else in this receiving game is stepping up to catch any passes. I'm really not crazy about Dalton Kincaid, who's going to be the rookie tight end. They're playing this like 11.5 personnel setup where he's like a sort of slot receiver, tight end hybrid type thing. I don't think that's not looking too great. They're also relying on a 190-pound running back in James Cook to try and carry like the workload ahead of someone like Josh Allen. But they're not really using him as much in the important, in the pass game moments. So they took him off the field to bring on Latavius Murray to run like the pass catching situations, and then also in the 2-minute offense. So I don't think this is really working out. And they're going to have to figure this out quick. Like, they're going to have a couple bounce-back games. I think 6 of their next 9 are winnable games. But if you take a look at their schedule to close this season, their last 7 games are the Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins. That's how they close the season. So if you get 6 wins out of those first couple of games, and you get, a bad run where you go like 3-4, I mean, you're talking about like a 9-win team who probably won't make the playoffs if that's the case. I think as a general macro trend, this team is plateaued. They're not getting any better. It's gotten very stagnant for them. Their defense is declining as well, and I think that's going to be the end of Sean McDermott.
What do you think, Zach?
That's an interesting take. I immediately disagreed with Kleine, but actually the more I think about it, I think there's something there not because the talent's not there. The talent is obviously still there. Josh Allen, you have to keep him unreleased. Or you have to allow him to take those shots. Yes, there's going to be interceptions, but that's what makes Josh Allen great, is he takes those risks. He's not a game manager in any way, shape, or form. But what's interesting about what Kleine had mentioned is that the business, the model for the Bills has remained consistent, right? They're not afraid to go 5 wide on a first down and be able to air it out. They've got those studs, Gabe Davis, Diggs, but they have really no consistent running game. And obviously, James Cook, he just his body type, you can't take on the 25, 30 carries a game. Not like they would do that anyways, but the model is out there. Defensive coordinators have had years now to adapt to that model, and it may have worked at one point in time, but I'm curious to see if it continues to work in the future. I would say it's a slight overreaction just because I think the Bills will figure it out. I certainly hope so. That's quite the take, but I do see where Kleine is coming from in that defensive coordinators have been taking snapshots, and I think they've been trying to adapt their defenses to be able to attack those type of offenses in the future. So, Ev, what's your take there?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an overreaction from making the playoff standpoint, but I'm intrigued. I did have the Dolphins winning the division, so that certainly hasn't changed. And you put them in that wild card mix, anything can happen. I mean, that was a bad loss. Obviously the Jets rallied around the Aaron Rodgers injury, but boy, that is one ugly way to lose a football game. And Gabe Davis is the guy for me, like you mentioned, that has to step up. Like last year, he had a lot of injuries. He was playing through injuries. Can he actually be a reliable number two? Instead of just a kind of red zone size guy and big play kind of home run hitter. I think that they really need that guy outside of Diggs so they can stop just, as this Klein mentioned, force feeding him. So we'll have to see, but not a good start for the Bills, and I'm sure Cy would love that take. He likes to fade the Bills. But yeah, I don't know. Good overreaction. Should we jump into, I guess, just some general kind of recap, anything we didn't cover at the top? The Lions, opening night, come out and beat the Chiefs. Kadarius Toney has the worst game by a wide receiver in NFL history, I think. We worried about the Chiefs at all? The Kelsey-less Chiefs after a Week 1 loss to the Lions?
Ultimately, I'm not, right? We're still talking about Pat Mahomes. I think Kelsey's going to be back probably this week. And like we said before, Chris Jones will be back too. I think probably one of the big problems they had, other than the terrible receiver play pretty much across the board, was that they were getting no pressure and they could not really stop anything in the run game from Detroit. He was really just set up to run the ball really well. They have an excellent offensive line, and Ben Johnson is their offensive coordinator. It's probably going to be fine for the Chiefs. I'm really not worried about them.
Zach?
I would agree. I'm more worried about whoever's running Kadarius Toney's Twitter account. I hope it's not him, but he decided to flame the Giants to try to take the spotlight off of him. Ev, did you see this information? Everyone was calling him Quadropius. He obviously deserved the critique. I mean, Patrick Mahomes' ball to him that resulted in a pick six was literally right there. But what does Kadarius Toney do? Does he accept it and say, hey, that was my bad, I'm going to be better? He certainly didn't do it publicly. Instead, he flamed the Giants for their horrific performance and how happy he was to be traded from such a terrible organization. So, I guess Kadarius, you can handle that situation one way or the other, but I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine and not worried about them by any means.
Yeah, agreed there. They need to figure out which receivers are going to step up, but it's usually just Kelsey anyway, so who cares? Bengals-Browns, the Bengals looked truly, truly horrendous as they did in Week 1 last year. Joe Burrow coming off the injury in horrible weather, so kind of a weird game, but, is this maybe moving the needle on the Browns? I mean, their ability to pound the football with Nick Chubb. Deshaun looked still not great, in my opinion, but he looked a little better than he did last year, and the defense looks amazing, so where are we at with those teams?
I don't feel like we really learned a ton about the Browns. But it's kind of like you just said, it was pretty much as expected. Deshaun Watson was fine, not great, not to the level anyone really wants him to be at in terms of quality. Defense, yeah, really good. And just really is more so about the Bengals kind of face planting. It's a common trend with Joe Burrow's beginning of the season. They start off slow. And, bringing this calf injury, everything looks a little out of sync. Everything's a little timing just a little bit off across the board. Yep. And it really just manifested itself last week.
Yeah, we'll see that. I would agree with that too. I mean, one thing that's going to be interesting for the Browns is as they start to, Nick Chubb is just incredible. He's an incredible ball player. He can tote the rock 30 times a game. He runs with such a low center of gravity. He's not going to get hurt. I mean, he's a bowling ball, but he's got speed in him too. It's incredible to watch him play. I ultimately think that's going to set up Amari Cooper for an incredible season. He didn't have the greatest performance in Week 1, but that just goes to show you how deadly the Browns could be when they start that air attack and as Deshaun Watson starts to get, I guess, more comfortable with the speed of play and whatnot. But, this is definitely embarrassing for the Bengals. I mean, I don't know what's more embarrassing, that loss or the fact that Jamar Chase had, compared the Browns to being elves. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Oh, dude, so good.
Angry at himself for losing the elves. It's not even close to being Christmas. I don't know what he's talking about, but I might just fade the Bengals based off of that comment alone. But ultimately, in all seriousness, I think both teams are going to be fine. I think the Browns could make the playoffs, though, this season. I mean, their defense is stout, and they're just less volatile. There's not as much ups and downs. They don't have as high of a ceiling, I would say, as the Bengals, but they're less volatile, and I think that could be a good thing, needing consistency in the AFC North.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone, or at least not everyone, but our three on our preview kind of faded the Browns, and I feel like everyone was kind of fading the Browns, but That defense is so good. They have a great offensive line. Nick Chubb is one of the best pure runners in the game. Um, they don't have a ton of receivers, but like Cooper and Elijah Moore kind of have a nice little balance if Elijah Moore can play well. And like that kind of puts it on Deshaun, right? But I feel like if Deshaun is just serviceable, like how are they not a playoff contender? Even though I was fading them, so we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm not worried about the Bengals either. They're figured out. They do this every year. Bucks Vikings we talked about, but the one thing I wanted to mention is the Bucks were super hyped to win that game, and people are kind of on the Bucks train again now. But then it came out today, according to Rashad White, I believe, that the Bucks knew the play calls that the Vikings were running on defense at it kind of like late first half throughout the entire second half. They knew they'll only put up 20 points. So like that's great, and you could like their calls on the field, so they knew when they were running cover 2 or cover 3 or whatever the case may be, and they still brag about knowing their calls, but you still only drop 20 points on a defense that's already, as Klein mentioned earlier, terrible to begin with. So ever since I heard that, we'll talk about it in the picks, but I'm still fading the Bucks as I was before the season. Just so bizarre. Titans Saints, I don't think we need to talk about. That was such an awful game. Falcons we talked about. Colts Jags we talked about a little bit. 49ers. Zach, we were on Pittsburgh to win that game. Absolute clown pick by both of us. A true disaster class in week 1 picking. The Niners look like a juggernaut. Purdy looks already back to his normal form. Ayuk looks like a stud. What else to say? But they look like, the best team in the NFL right now, I would have to say.
Yeah, I'm so glad Sai's still in India because he would have absolutely flamed us for that pick selection. Because I remember that. We both looked at each other. We were getting giddy with excitement. And I was like, am I actually going to beat this? All right, sure. Let's go Pittsburgh. Why not? Pittsburgh's going to beat the 49ers. And boy, were we wrong. But
Eagles. Let's do Eagles and Cowboys together. One of my overreactions, I'll save it for here. I actually don't believe this, but I think it's a common reaction is that the Cowboys should now be the favorite to win that division after their unbelievable performance, specifically on defense, and the Eagles looking a little sluggish out at Foxborough. So what say you guys on those two teams?
Starting with the Eagles, I'm not too worried about them. I don't think there was anything that really happened in that game that would make you say, wow, like this team is really going to struggle, or this team wasn't anywhere they were last year. I mean, Bill Belichick had like an entire offseason to plan for the Eagles here, and they got out to the gate. They got out to the gate with a real fast start, especially with the defensive pick 6. So I do feel the Eagles probably pulled off the gas a little bit. Patriots were able to climb their way back in. Jalen Hurts had another fumble at a big moment. I'm not worried about the Eagles. I still think they're going to be a lot better than the Cowboys, and I'm really not willing to draw a lot of conclusions on the Cowboys whipping up on the Giants like that. I mean, that was just unbelievably unfair. The Giants look incredibly inept.
Cool. I couldn't agree more, Ev. I agree exactly with Klein. I think this is definitely an overreaction with the Cowboy hype, and I think the Cowboys will return back to normalcy. They have a tendency of doing that. They also have a tendency of blowing teams out a couple of weeks during a season. Like when you compare every NFL team, the Cowboys, from a point differential standpoint, will be a lot higher than others, but for some reason their record's still kind of like right there in the middle of the pack. So they do this every year. Normally it's kind of like during the middle of the season, especially when they play the Commanders. I'm not really worried about it either, and I still think the Philadelphia Eagles take that division, and they don't even sweat it, to be personal. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think the Eagles looked a little slow, so maybe there's a Super Bowl hangover, but I do agree with you guys on that. And then I want to move quickly here so we can get to picks in a reasonable time. Rams, Seahawks. Seahawks, huge disappointment in week 1. I had them as a playoff team. What do you guys think about that game and, kind of the outlook for those teams?
Yeah, super disappointing from Seattle, like you said. Probably the big thing, other than the performance-wise, that they're going to lose. They lost their 2 offensive tackles, so things might not look much better for them here in the coming weeks. Like you, I had them probably in that wild card spot, but that's already looking a little shaky from the jump here.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I just think the Rams. I think Cam Akers going to have a really, really good year this season, and so.
Oh gosh.
Wait, what?
I think he is.
What?
You guys don't like? You don't
Dude,
like
Sean
Cam
McVay
Akers?
hates him.
What?
Sean McVay literally benched him already
Dude.
for Kyron
Wait, he
Williams.
benched him during week
I
one?
mean,
He's the
running
backup.
behind Kyron Williams.
He's the
already.
backup.
Oh my gosh! All right, well that might be the most horrendous take of the season.
So Klein, the backstory here is we have a joint run podcast auction league that we do together, and this year, so last year, these two jabronis made us like blow so much cap for Allen Robinson. They were like, dude, we have to just keep bidding and get Allen Robinson. So they ballooned him up to like 20 plus bucks, which was probably double his value at least. We know what happened there. So then this year, not quite as dramatic, but they did the same thing with Cam Akers. We spent $16 on Cam Akers. I was trying to get James Conner at like 10 bucks, Isaiah Pacheco. They said, no, we can't do it. Then we hammer Cam Akers, and I'm like, dude, this is an absolute disaster class. And sure enough, after one game, I can't even start him anywhere, and I am glory playing. I keep saying I, but it's we, but it feels like I because, this is every year with this stuff, so we're so excited to glory play Zach Moss at the RB2 this week.
What is the service though? Because Cam Akers is so supremely talented.
He's not. He's terrible. He's terrible. He can't catch passes. He can't pass block. He's terrible. He's not even a good runner. You're praying for
He's a great runner. He's a north-south one-cut style back, and that's what you need in the NFL. You don't want these shitty guys that are running left and right. And he's got speed too. He's got speed.
I will say, Achilles injuries are hard. I will grant you that was a big injury. Maybe before the injury, coming out of college, maybe, but he is awful and is. Oh my gosh. Anyway, we got to move along, but yeah, this whole Cam Akers saga is going to be just like last year, Zach. You and Cy just forcing me into taking Rams players I hate, and then it costs us big time. Not that in y'all's defense, I know last year I suggested Gabe Davis and Brandon Cooks as alternatives. Both were busts. This year we'll see if my alternatives are any better. But I do, before we do picks, just quick like hot fantasy takes, because Klein's a big fantasy guy. So maybe, I know I'm catching you off guard here. Any like just quick like fantasy reactions, like Cam Akers being one as a complete bust, but starting with Klein, but cool if you have any as well, and I'll give some like any just quick fantasy reactions to week one. Super quick takes.
Two is going to hold a top 5 quarterback position, or he's going to be, if it is a top 5 quarterback. I mean, that target share, their pass rate was super high, even playing against the Chargers, who's basically daring teams to run against them because they're just a run funnel. But yeah, I mean, just having weapons like Tyreek and Waddle, and at the rate they're going to throw at probably throughout the year, I think feel pretty good that he's going to finish, top 5 quarterback there.
All right. I'll give you Jahmyr Gibbs. If you have any chance to trade for him, do it now because he's about to explode. The frustrating usage on Thursday was a very bizarre decision to act like he's never played a football game before in his life, and that he needs to understand how it works. But, I think starting this week he's going to explode. So that's one. But cool, if you got any, I got a couple more, maybe.
Yeah, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars GM gambled with disaster given Christian Kirk that big contract, if you guys catch the pun here, because Calvin Ridley has come out of nowhere, and he's going to be a fantastic receiver. It's funny how recency bias can kind of get the best of us. I even, as a Falcons fan, forgot of his greatness, and he just runs at a different speed than every other player on that field. It's incredible to watch. So good to see him back, good to see him healthy, and even in a crowded Jacksonville wide receiver grouping, he stands out alone. So, that Christian Kirk deal may not have been the greatest, but welcome back, Ridley.
Yeah, it really looked amazing. Klein, what else you got? I don't have a ton here, actually, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of coming up with these pretty quick, but I do think Tony Pollard is going to finish as the RB1 this year.
Do you? I have him 3, dude. Dude, they did not let me draft Tony Pollard.
What?
So, actually, honestly, one of my takes is that I'm a little concerned about Bijan. The usage is going to be wild, but not being a red zone back, it's going to be hard to be like top 5 or 6 in fantasy. I think I still have him 5, but it's going to be hard if he's not getting like those red zone touches. And Algier looked good, but I have Tony Pollard. I'm conservatively still at 3 behind McCaffrey and Eckler, but if one of those guys gets hurt, Eckler's already hurt. Tony Pollard's the slam dunk man. He's
Klein,
so
let
good.
me give you like my little pitch on Pollard, and feel free to respond. I'm curious to see why you think that. So, Pollard to me is not a 20 down back guy consistently. The reason he was so good was because Ezekiel Elliott was able to break down those defenses just yard after yard, just those hard, grueling runs, which just set up those holes, especially outside on the pitches, on those stretch runs for Tony Pollard. That's where he shined. So my worry is you can't give the guy the ball 20 times a game, or else he's going to get hurt. He's not quite James Cook, but he's not much bigger than James Cook. I mean, he also runs like a wide receiver. He doesn't have a low center of gravity. I just fear he's going to get injured if they give him too much durability. So why do you think he's going to be the number one overall running back?
Well, I would counter your Zeke points particularly with that. Even when Zeke was out and they gave him the 20 touches, he still smashed, right? Like he definitely is going to have to get there with efficiency. He's definitely going to have to get there with having the goal line run, which is exactly what he had in week 1 here. True. So that's out the window. And he's already a really good pass catcher. So I think all 3 of those combined, the fact that he's not really going to come off the field, there's nobody behind him who's really going to take away significant snaps because of their individual talent. They'll spell him and stuff like that. But, I mean, he's the guy in this offense. I think they do want to run the ball more, especially in neutral script situations. But this is a guy that, like I said, he's not coming off the field. He can do everything for this offense. And, yeah, I mean, he might only do it on 20 touches. Or he might only have those options because they probably don't want him to break down, kind of like you said. But he's proven that he's efficient enough to get it done on just those carries alone.
Yeah. The fact that I went 0 for 3 on Pollard shares is just killing me. I tried to stick to the board, That's
why you got to get into best ball.
Yeah, you're right. Anyways, a couple other honorable mentions, not really fantasy. Jordan Love looked darn good. And now the Bears fans are literally in hell about to watch Jordan Love pick them apart for the next decade because Justin Fields did not look like he's advanced as a passer at all. I thought he looked awful. I heard, I don't know if you guys watched the QB School on YouTube. The guy that breaks down quarterback tape, he's awesome. I haven't watched it, but apparently like the film on Fields was terrible from week 1. So he'll be fine from a fantasy standpoint, at least as a serviceable QB1. But man, I'm concerned about his long-term projection as a real NFL quarterback. Should we do picks?
We should do picks.
Let's get it.
All right. Recapping last week, I'll pull up the board. Cy snuck out a win on Monday Night Football. Bad numbers across the board. Zach, you and I were 8-8 straight up, and yeah, not great. Cy was 9-7. Tough week, as week 1 always is. We do have against the spread stats. Zach, you were horrendous against the spread, truly horrendous. 4-12 against the spread.
It's Cam Akers' fault, man.
You got that one right. But 4-12 against the spread. I was 7-9 against the spread. Cy was 8-8 against the spread. Kleine will be our first guest picker. So we can start it off. Thursday Night Football, Minnesota at Philadelphia. Philly is a 6.5-point favorite. I think it might be down to 6, but we're going to stick with 6.5. Over-under is 49. I'll start this off. I have Philly winning, but not covering. They have some guys injured and out, and on a short, ugly week, as Thursday Night Football always is. I'll say Minnesota covers the 6.5. McCoy?
I am going to say that Philly wins and covers, and I think the key here is keeping that at 6. The moment it goes to 7, it's going to be tough, but I can see this being a 7-point game. All right. Philly wins and covers.
Kleine?
Evan, you're back in primetime Kirk. I mean, to cover the spread here?
Big mistake, probably.
Yeah, that's surprising. Yeah, I'll take Eagles to cover, even on the road.
All right, moving along, we got Green Bay at Atlanta, 1 p.m. Green Bay is actually a 1.5-point road favorite here. Over-under is 40.5. We'll start with Kleine on this one.
I'm going to back the Packers here. Also, yeah, to win and cover, -1.5, pretty much close to a pick 'em. I was really impressed with Green Bay. I almost made it one of my hot takes that they would win the division and Matt LaFleur would be coach of the year. So that was something in the middle there. But I was really impressed with what they had in week 1, even though they played the Bears, who were terrible.
Yeah, interesting. I got Atlanta money line here. I'm kind of surprised they're dogs here. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on the Atlanta train, so I'm going to pick them to win here. Zach, you got your team?
Give me Atlanta money line, baby. That the house is going to be rocking with our artificial noise and everything that caused pandemonium in the stadium. So give me Atlanta money line here.
I am here for it. Las Vegas at Buffalo. Devontae Adams just popped up on the injury report today. Let's see if that means anything. But Buffalo's a 9.5-point favorite coming off an ugly Monday Night Football game. Over-under is 47, so pretty high. Mikulik, start with you.
Give me the Bills to win and cover. Jimmy G actually played relatively, I didn't think terrible for the Raiders, but I just think the Raiders are going to they have no promise this year. Give me the Bills in a response victory at home. They win and cover that 9.5.
Kleine?
Sorry, who's at home here? Is this in Vegas?
It's Buffalo.
Oh, it's in Buffalo. Yeah, I still think I'm going to go Bills to win, Raiders to cover. 9.5 is just a lot of points.
Okay. I got Bills winning and covering. Yeah, not confident in that one, no, by any means. So, next game, Baltimore at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a 3.5-point favorite at home. Over-under is 46. Kleine, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, how much of a bounce back spot do you think how important of a bounce back spot do you think this is for the Bengals? And then especially if the Ravens are coming into town, I'll take Bengals to win and cover. Good, bounce back spot for Burrow. Let's get after it. What could go wrong?
Yeah, they just look so horrible for me. Like, I like the idea of a bounce back spot, but like Vegas, I think is giving way too many points here. So I'm gonna take Baltimore money line. I'm not the biggest Baltimore fan, but like it took Cincinnati more than a couple games last year to get it going. So I'm gonna take money line, and honestly, I'm definitely taking the points, even if I'm not taking it straight up. So Mikulik.
Man, I thought it was crazy for thinking the same thing, Ev. Thank you for bailing me out here. I'm going to go Baltimore money line. Normally, the Bengals play really well against that secondary, which is surprising because the Baltimore Ravens have a great secondary. But those Bengals wide receivers normally get the best of them. I think that's going to change in this game, and I agree. I just don't think the Bengals have their mojo right now, and I think Baltimore is going to take advantage of that. So give me the ML.
Well, this isn't good, Zach. We're aligning on moneyline picks. That is never a recipe for success. Moving on. I'll start us off here. It's going to be Seattle at Detroit, which is an interesting rematch of an early season game last year that went like 48-45 or something in Seattle's favor. Detroit is a 5.5-point favorite on this one, coming off of the extra rest from the Thursday night game. Over-under is 47. I have here Detroit winning but not covering, which seems like a clown pick because I feel like they're actually going to cover that. So I'm going to stick to my no cover, but yeah, not confidently. Mikulik?
I think that's a very appropriate picture, or a picture as well that you painted, Evan. I'm going to go Detroit wins, but they do not cover 5.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Detroit, and they're going to win, obviously, and then they're going to cover. Like I said, I think Seattle's in trouble. They do have a lot of injuries across the board already.
Yeah. All right. Chargers at Titans. Chargers are 3-point favorites on the road going to Nashville. Over-under is 45. Let's start with Mikulik on this one.
This one is not even close to me. I've got the Chargers covering that 3-point spread. Now, this is a trap spread. This is definitely a trap spread, much like the Bengals was a trap spread last week. There's something that Vegas knows that we don't, but I definitely expect the Titans to bounce back. But I just love the Chargers' height and their passing attack. Their offense did not take one back step that entire first game. And that was against corners like Ramsey, Xavier Howard. I've got the Chargers winning this game and covering comfortably, -3.
All right. Kleine?
Going into Nashville, I do think Chargers win, but Titans cover. Vrabel's going to make this a really tough game for the Chargers, who historically have not been the best run defense. This could be a blow-up spot for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, honestly, I have Chargers winning and covering just because it's such a low number, but Derrick Henry could run all over him, and I could easily see the Titans winning, and I just generally hate betting the Chargers to cover because they never do. So I'll stick with the Chargers winning cover because I think the Titans are awful, specifically in the pass game. But we'll move on. Chicago at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a 2.5-point favorite at home. 41.5 is the over-under. We will start with Kleine on this one.
Tampa Bay wins, and Tampa Bay covers the spread here. I was actually kind of impressed with Baker Mayfield. I've never, ever liked him in his career ever. But I do think that, Dave Cannell is the guy coming from Seattle who was the quarterback's coach and now the OC. They're putting in a good offensive scheme that is, just going to limit Baker from doing the erratic things because sometimes he does things that are just fine. And the offense is going to be designed to get the ball into the hands of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans as fast as possible. and scheme them open. So yeah, I'm kind of actually, after week one, I am a little optimistic about the Bucks not being one of the worst teams in the league. So I will take the winning cover.
All right. I'm following my betting strategy. My week 2 betting strategy every year is to do the opposite of what happened last week, and fade the results and stick to your preseason expectations. So I'm kind of bucking what makes sense here, which is Bucks winning cover, and I'm going to take Chicago money line just because I think Tampa Bay is terrible. And Baker knew the plays last week and still only put up 20 points. So I'm not too
I
confident.
love that analysis so much that you were able to figure that out. That's wild.
Yeah, kind of an arbitrary pick, but I'm going to go Bears money line.
Yeah, I'll be quick.
Sorry,
here,
can I
too.
let me go the Bears real quick? Did you guys know Nate Davis went to Stonebridge?
Really?
Who's like, yeah, he's like one of the Bears' offensive linemen.
What? Really?
Yeah, he went to Stonebridge like around the same time that we did. Like I had never heard of this guy, but here he is, like playing for the Bears.
I didn't know that either.
That is interesting. Yeah, I've never even
Good for
heard of
him. All right.
We'll have to have him on the pod at some point. But I will go Buccaneers winning cover. I'm not going to overthink this one. The Buccaneers still have their corners. They still got their defense. Their linebackers are great. I still think they're going to cause a big defensive issue for Justin Fields. So I'm not going to overcomplicate this one. Bucks winning cover.
All right, Kansas City at Jacksonville. Big early season AFC game. Kansas City's a 3-point road favorite. Kelsey, it looks like he's going to be back. Chris Jones is definitely playing. Over-under is 51. I'm going to say KC wins and doesn't cover. Defending Super Bowl champs rarely cover, even though it's only 3. And I can see the Jags outright, but I'll say Kansas City wins and not cover. Fine.
Yeah, I agree with you, Evan. There's not too much more to add to that, assuming all the, everyone's back for KC.
All right. Zach?
Give me Jacksonville money line and the over. The over here. I think this is going to make things really interesting if the Chiefs go 0-2. Give me Jacksonville money line here.
I don't hate it. All right, let's pick up the pace here a little bit. Let's go Indianapolis and Houston. 1 p.m. game. Indianapolis is actually a 1-point favorite on the road. Over-under is a low 39.5. Let's start with Bakulik.
Colts win and cover.
All right. Kleine?
Colts win. Yeah, Colts win cover.
I'm going to, again, buck what seems to make sense in my head and say Houston wins this one outright. I think Dameon Pierce is going to have a really good game here. So we'll take Houston at home. Moving along, San Francisco at the Rams, 405. San Francisco's an 8-point favorite on the road. Over-under is 44.5. Let's start with Kleine.
Niners to win and Rams to cover. Like I said from one of the games before, 8's a lot of points.
Yep. My new rule is to just always take San Francisco to win and cover, so I'm starting that here. San Francisco wins and covers. Zach?
San Francisco wins and covers, but you will see a Cam Akers touchdown just to save face after this whole podcast.
Yeah, but it won't be in our fantasy lineup. I can be damn sure of that. So, Giants at Arizona, 4:05 game. Giants are 5.5-point favorites, looking for a bounce back. Over/under is 39.5. Giants win and cover for me. Kleine?
What a gross game.
Awful.
I'll just say that. But I'll go Giants win, Cardinals cover.
All right.
I'm going to say Giants win and cover. They are so embarrassed after this last game that Brian the Bull is going to whip them into shape here. I think they're going to play really, really well. Giants win and cover.
All right. Zach Wilson's first start of the year is coming at Dallas. That'll be fun. 4:25. Dallas is a 9-point favorite at home. Over/under is 39.5. Let's start with Bakulik on this one.
Yeah, this is Dallas win and cover, all written over it. I think this is going to be a dumpster fire for the Jets, and it's going to start week 2. I love how they had the Cinderella story in the first week. I mean, the Hard Knocks kid that barely made the team scored the winning touchdown, but their season's done. I've got the Cowboys winning and covering comfortably here.
Kleine?
Yeah, Cowboys win, Jets cover. Like as I say, 9.5 is a lot of points for a team that I think is really, really good, except for quarterback.
Yeah, it's gonna be with the defense that good. I don't think the Cowboys' offense looks amazing right now, so it's gonna be tough. I feel like it's tough to cover that with such a good defense on the other side. But I'm gonna say they build some short fields and are able to do it. I got Dallas winning and covering. Washington at Denver, 4:25. Denver is a 3.5-point favorite at home. Over unders 38. Let's start with Bakulik again.
Ev, I'm not sure if you're going to like this or not, but well, I know you're not. I've got Denver winning and covering that spread. 3.5.
Yeah, I'm
Fine.
with Bakulik. Denver wins and covers. Wasn't impressed with the Commanders. Really wasn't impressed with the Broncos either, but, you know.
Yeah, the Broncos are also terrible. This isn't going to be a great game. I could definitely see the Washington Commanders winning this outright and playing better than they did in Week 1, but I'm going to try and be unbiased. So I'll say Denver wins, but I'm taking the points. I'm taking the 3.5 with the Commanders. Sunday Night Football is Miami at New England. Miami is a 2.5-point favorite on the road. Over under is 46.5. Let's start with Kleine.
Dolphins win, barely. Patriots cover.
Interesting. This is a trap spread for me, but if what I believe about the Dolphins is true and what I believe about the Patriots is true, then they should be able to win and cover. So I'm going to take Miami to win and cover. Close though.
I've got Miami winning and covering too, and what's kind of solidified that to me, guys, is just the fact that the Dolphins played that close game with the Chargers last week, and they kind of remained in the game. They're used to playing those close games because we know the Patriots are, but I just think the Dolphins have what it takes to push over that 3 points. So give me the win and cover.
All right, and Monday Night Football. I just hate the 2 Monday Night Football games in Week 2. It makes no sense to me. I don't know why they chose to do that, especially with the time slots overlapping so much. Just brutal. I just want to say that. But and they're also not the best games. So New Orleans at Carolina, complete snooze fest. New Orleans is a 3-point favorite. Over under is 40. I got New Orleans winning and covering, but who cares really about this? Zach?
New Orleans wins and covers as well.
Yeah, I gotta go the same.
Yeah. Snooze. Cleveland at Pittsburgh, slightly more interesting. Cleveland is a 2.5-point favorite. Over under is 39.5. Let's start with Kleine here.
Yeah, I'm really low on the Steelers, so I'm gonna stick with Browns winning cover. I don't think 2.5 is a lot of points at all.
Yeah, I want to buck my, go with my usual trend of kind of fading what happened last week and doing the opposite. And if I trust my preseason predictions, then that means I have to take the Steelers at home to win this. But, they're playing a team with the exact same formula as the 49ers, basically. And 2.5, like you said, is not a big number. So I find it hard to believe they're going to turn around this quickly. So I got to take Cleveland to win and cover as well.
Give me Cleveland win and cover. They play well on the road. If you look at their last couple of years here, they actually have a better road record than they do a home record. So I'm just going to trust Cleveland here, and I actually think they're going to cover that spread too, 2.5.
All right, gents, we'll see what happens. Hopefully Kleine can get the guest pickers off to a good foot this year, but I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks, everyone, as always, for listening. Any honorable mentions from you guys across, not NFL, just anything you want to mention here before we close the show? Zach Bakulik, go first.
Man, I'm excited to hopefully improve my 8-8 record. That's atrocious. That might be one of the worst starts that we've had so far, but looking to redeem ourselves. Normally we kind of run into this spread issue by week 4 because that's when Vegas has all their data and everything's to a T, but we're going to need a big improvement here. Looking forward to it week 2.
Yeah, week 1 is always super hard, but then I feel like week 2 and 3 are the sweet spots, but I did not like the spreads this week, so we're going to have to grind for this, but my honorable mention is JMU Dukes. Shout out all the UVA people that were calling us little brother on Twitter all week and wherever else. So wasn't pretty, but snuck out a huge comeback win. And Zach Bakulik, you are next in 2 years in Lane Stadium. So looking forward to that. But Kleine, honorable mention. Close us out.
I'm good. It's really great to talk with you guys again and see what's going on. So it's been a lot of fun.
I love it. Always great to have you. Hopefully we'll have you on again later in the year. But yeah, thanks again, everyone. That was Mondays Down South. See you after week 2.